Hello everyone, welcome to Red 5 Standing By. I'm Andrew, and the time has come to talk Last Jedi spoilers. The movie's been out for a week, so a lot of you have probably gotten the chance to see it at least once. I've seen it twice, I'm not bragging, but I'm probably going to see it a third and fourth time. I just need to find the time to get out to theaters and see it, because if you follow me on social media, I posted a video announcing that me and my wife are expecting our first child. It's a really exciting time for us, and I just want to be there to help her through the pregnancy and make sure she's as comfortable as possible for the next 7 months, I think it is. But yeah, it's a real exciting time for me and my family right now, and I do apologize. I did want to do this video in front of the green screen like I normally would have normally set up the green screen over there and set my tripod and teleprompter over here and film it that way, but unfortunately my tripod broke this week and I won't be able to get my hands on another one until next week because Christmas is on Monday and shipping and all that nonsense. But yeah, so I'm kind of forced to do this spoiler discussion at my desk like I would in my movie reviews. So let's just dive right into it. So I want to start off the spoiler discussion with the things I didn't like so much about the film. And if you watched my non-spoiler review, you know that the Finn and Rose stuff is kind of my least favorite part about this movie. It felt to me like this story arc was put in there just so that Finn had something to do throughout this movie. I do like their scene when they first meet. That part I did like about them, because Rose is kind of like us in meeting Finn, and he's like this resistance hero, and she gets all starstruck and she kind of has a crush on him, and which leads to their kind of forced romance at the end that I think they're just gonna have to expand on that, and it was kind of like just forced upon us. But after that initial scene with them, their storyline just wasn't all that interesting. It has this really horrible Maz Kanata like cameo that I do not like the way they used Maz in this film. She was such a pivotal character in The Force Awakens, and she's relegated to this horrible hologram scene. This whole scene with Maz felt very video game. It's like, here's your next objective. Go to Canto Bight and get this code breaker, this master code breaker, and so you can get into wherever you want to go next. And everything on Canto Bight just reminded me of a lot of the things that I don't like about the prequels. However, out of all the stuff that I didn't like about Canto Bight, there's one aspect that they introduced that I kind of like, is the aspect of war profiteering, and how people that got rich that we see in Canto Bight got rich off selling stuff to the First Order and to the Resistance. That part I like, but everything else that happens on Canto Bight I just don't like, and you can't just take it out of the film because it ties into the main narrative, and I just wish they would have given Rose and Finn something more meaningful to do in this movie, and this whole side quest that they go on just felt really out of place to me. But the one story arc that I ended up really enjoying was the dynamic between Poe and Amilyn Holdo. I mean, this movie is full of lessons that our characters have to learn throughout the course of the film, and this Poe's lesson really starts at the opening scene when he takes on the Dreadnought, and oh god, that scene was so well done, because as the opening sequence plays out, it introduces this aspect to Poe and this lesson that he has to learn, that it's not always necessary for you to play the hero, because yeah, they took out the Dreadnought, and yeah, they escaped from the First Order, but at a great cost. They ended up costing them their entire bombing fleet, and they're left with a handful of X-Wings and A-Wings. As far as them getting away from the Resistance, I was totally on board with what Poe was doing, but like, it ends up that Holdo has the better plan, because when Leia explains Holdo's plan, Poe's like, yeah, that could totally work. So I don't get why you don't pull him aside and say, this is what I have planned. Why? Just trust me, this will work. But because ultimately Poe's plan ends up foiling Holdo's plan. So after that whole opening sequence with Poe taking on the Dreadnought, it leads to the next big scene when the First Order ends up catching up to them, and the bridge of the Radisk explodes, and Leia gets sucked out into space, and then her using her force abilities to bring her back into the spaceship. I know a lot of people don't like this scene, but I actually love this scene because I've been waiting so long to see Leia actively use the Force. And I see this scene showing us how powerful Leia actually is in the Force, and I think they're eventually setting her up to help Rey rebuild the Jedi Order and take sort of that mentor role. And of course they can't go that route because the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher in real life. And I said that there's a scene in at the end of the movie in my non-spoiler review that comes off a completely different way now, and that's the scene when Luke first appears on Crate and he reunites with his sister as a force projection of himself. To me, that scene was meant to be hinting towards Han, but of course, real life circumstances flip that scene on its head, and now to me it's all meant for Carrie Fisher, and it was just such a gut punch both times I saw that scene. And of course, you can't talk spoilers without talking about Rey, Luke, Ren, and Snoke. This is where I think the meat of the movie is, and this is where my favorite parts of the movie is, because that whole connection that Rey and Kylo Ren have in the Force and when they communicate with each other are my favorite parts of this movie, because connecting these two characters through the Force was a risk I think Johnson took that paid off so well for me, and it worked every single time it happened on screen. Save for there's one small moment that I wish they would have taken out, because there's one time that they're talking through the Force and for some reason Kylo Ren is shirtless, and that's an example of a moment of humor that just didn't work for me. But thankfully Daisy Ridley's performance just brought it back for me, because I almost got taken out by that joke, but then Daisy Ridley's performance just brought me back in. We can't not talk about this, because this is where I think most fans are gonna revolt against this movie, because, and to their credit, The Force Awakens did present Rey's parents as something of great importance, and it turns out that it's not all that important, because her parents are nobodies. They're junk traders that sold her off for drinking money, and she in fact is a nobody, and she's a completely new character. And I do want to talk about Kylo Ren, and I hear a lot of people say that he's too whiny and just complains a lot, and I said this much in my non-spoiler review, is that I just see him as a character that's just driven by his passions, because when you look at his history, it's no surprise that he is the way he is, because his parents see this power building in him and they have no idea how to handle it, so they just pawn him off on his uncle. It's like, here, take your nephew and teach him how to deal with this power, and his uncle ends up almost killing him. Almost in his eyes, his uncle's the bad guy, and which leads to him to turning to the dark side and turning to a mentor who constantly berates him, and he's constantly cutting him down. And of course, this anger and this passion leads to him turning on Supreme Leader Snoke, which leads to one of the best fight scenes I've seen all year. This brief team up with Rey and this whole lightsaber fight with the Praetorian Guard is so well done. And part of me is kind of disappointed that they killed Snoke off so quickly. And it kind of begs the question, is like, well, what's the purpose of the character of Snoke? I see as the character of Snoke is to further Kylo Ren's character and get him to a place where it ends up being Kylo Ren versus Rey. And to have a person like Snoke in the middle of it all would just take away from the conflict that these two characters are going through. Now we've come to the meat of the spoiler discussion with Luke Skywalker. Another moment that I hear people are just so conflicted by, and they've built up in their head with that first moment when Rey and Luke meet and she hands him the lightsaber and he chucks it over his shoulder. I mean, I get what they were going for with this scene. I just wish they hadn't gone comedic in this moment, because I understand people had built this moment up in their head and they wanted to see him sort of reflect and get like all emotional with the saber. But at this point, it's indicative of this character to not want this saber, because he wants nothing to do with the Jedi, and this saber represents another link to his past that he wants no part of. And I just think him chucking the lightsaber over his shoulder is just an example of a moment of humor that just didn't work for me. I would have preferred them to go a little bit more dramatic and had him just drop the saber and say, nope, I'm done with this, and just walk off. And there's other moments with Luke that I just really love. His reunion with R2 and Chewie make for some great, powerful moments with him warning where Han is and him learning that Han is past, and he goes onto the Falcon. He sneaks past Chewie when Chewie was about to eat a pork. That was a moment of humor that didn't bother me, but he gets on the Falcon and he gets the dice from the cockpit, which he eventually passes to Leia, sort of. and he ends up reuniting with R2. Of course it's R2 that convinces him to train Rey to a certain extent, and it's just one of those moments where you see the old Luke shine through. And I really wish they would have used R2 a bit more. I'm hoping that R2 gets more screen time in the next movie. And these scenes with Luke and Rey are some of my favorites, of him explaining why he thinks the Jedi need to end. Because I love the scene when he's explaining that like the Jedi get so caught up in their own legend. Because like when you strip them down and look at their deeds, it's like, yeah, they got lost in their own hubris, and it's the Republic gets destroyed right in front of him, and there's nothing that they can do about it. And he ends up making pretty much the same mistakes as they did. He gets so caught up in his own legend that he ends up creating Kylo Ren through this moment of weakness. And like I said before, this movie is full of lessons that our characters have to learn, and it's true for Luke as well, because the whole cameo with Yoda, I mean, oh my god, when the camera like tracks over and you get the reveal of Yoda, oh my god, I almost jumped out of my chair. It is such a great scene, because this is a moment of fan service that I think contributes towards the story, because it's Yoda with one final lesson that he has to give to Luke, that yeah, you have to pass on what you learn, not just your strengths, but also your weaknesses and your failures. And I know a lot of people have issue with where they took Luke Skywalker in this movie, and I actually love it because it shows that even our heroes can continue to learn and grow. And a lot of people also have issue with him projecting himself and opening the Force up to new abilities. And I think it's great because, again, it opens the galaxy up, and this is a movie that explores the Force in a way that I just totally didn't expect. And for Luke to exhibit this ability and sacrifice and give himself to the Force was, I think, a great way to have him close off his journeys to a point. And I don't think we've seen the last Luke Skywalker. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to get Force Ghost Luke in episode 9. And the way that things have turned out, I think that we're going to get more of Luke than we would have had Carrie Fisher not have passed. How they end up handling this, I'm not sure, but I'm completely satisfied with the way the character of Luke turned out, because I love that he gets caught up in his own legend, and like it proves that like our legends are still human. You can put our heroes up on this pedestal, and it's like it's Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, but at the end of the day, he's still learning, and he's still able to make mistakes. So overall, again, I really enjoyed this movie. The first time around, I wasn't so sure about it, but then I really needed that second viewing to really appreciate what this movie is doing and the risks it was taking. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. There's a lot that I love about this movie, but then there's things that I wish they would have done differently or just completely not included in the film. Before I go, I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to share it while you're at it. More Star Wars discussion and videos to come, so please do subscribe to stay updated on all of those and all the other movie reviews and videos I do on this channel. So as always, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.